Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first Zelt webinar. I see there are quite a few people who've already joined. We'll give it a couple of minutes, but if you want to like wave or say hello in the chat, just to let us know that you can hear us all right while we do this. Everybody hear us all right? Okay, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for confirming. Awesome. Okay. Um, so yeah, once again, hi everyone. Welcome to the growth webinar, which is the first in a series of many other to come. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is our first one, so we are yeah, be gentle with us, and we'll appreciate your feedback along the way on how to make this better. I see a lot of familiar names here, but some that I don't know yet. So for anybody I haven't met yet or I'm yet to meet, I'm Delia. I'm the head of customer experience at Zelt. I'm most of the time in contact with all of our customers, so most of you here. And yeah, overseeing all the customer journeys throughout their life cycle with Zelt. Today we are going to show you around our newest, biggest development to date, which is our growth app, which consists of performance management and surveys. So yeah, thank you for joining us here. In terms of a bit of housekeeping, you can ask your questions in the Q&A. We will see if that works. If not, I will ask you to ask it in the chat. If the question is relevant for the topic we're discussing, I'll interrupt and ask the question. Then, if not, we will answer them at the end of the presentation. Our main presenter today is Chris. For everybody who doesn't know him, I'll let him give the introduction as well. But yeah, Chris is Zelt's founder, and he will show you around this feature. And yeah, I'll pass it on to Chris. Take it away.
Hey guys, nice to meet you. I'm Chris. Can you all hear and see me okay? I know we've done the test with Delia, but I want to make sure that it works for me as well. Great, thanks for confirming. Yeah, I'm Chris Preeb. I'm the founder of Zelt. I started Zelt around 4 years ago, and the growth app was always one of those things that we knew was going to become very important eventually. So I'm really excited that that we've got this exciting new functionality that we can that we've built so that you guys can help your team grow eventually, right? So it's about personal growth, professional growth, team development. And just to set it into a little bit of context, so when we started building out Zelt, we kind of had to build a lot of the operational, let's say, bits of the HR stack first, so that you can first of all get your people onboarded and started and paid. And now the software elements of the HR lifecycle are becoming more and more important. And yeah, it's a very, very important part of the app for us, and one that we have spent a lot of time on in the last half year, and we will continue spending a lot of time on. So very excited to have you all here. I know we can't make it fully interactive given that we're too many people on the call, but please use the chat to, put in your questions or comments or feedback. Yeah, we will go through all of that, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible and take your feedback also into account. So without further ado, I think I will get started now. And most importantly, I will show you the functionality. So I will share my screen, and I hope that this works as expected. Please do let me know if you can see my screen. Great, right? So I'm logged in now as Chris Pringle. which is kind of my alter ego here. This is the dashboard, which you're probably all familiar with. And if you haven't been there yet, basically the functionality is here in the growth part of the menu. And you see the familiar company, team, and view switch here, like in all other parts of the app. So right now I'm logged in as a admin in the growth section. In fact, I'm a super admin in the system, so I can do this everywhere. And I see here my reviews and my surveys. And I think we're going to start with surveys today because they are a little bit less complex and they have a few more visual elements to it. So it's a bit easier to get into it. There are a lot of parallel, a lot of similarities between those two elements. So I think it's a good way to get started. So why don't we jump in directly here? So I have here, as you can see, an onboarding survey, an annual engagement survey, and a pulse survey. Two of these are currently ongoing. One of them is still in draft, so I haven't started this one yet. And you can see, why don't we go into our pulse survey to start with? And first of all, you can see here the current status of the survey. You can see that that there are 92 participants that were invited to the survey. At the moment, 66 have already participated. So you can see your participation rate here. You can see the current survey score, which is essentially the sum or the average of all the answers that have been given. And you can see also the factor score. So the factors are one of the bigger changes that we've made with the app. And in particular, so think of factors as kind of like question categories or like things you want to measure on a higher level. And your questions evolve around those factors. In particular, I've built my pulse survey here, and I can see my questions when I go here to the questions list around 5 different core factors. So I want to know about how's my engagement? How do people feel? How engaged do they feel? What do they think about our leadership, our management, teamwork, and learning and development? And basically, the more questions I add around a certain category, the more information I have and the better I can measure the results. In particular, you can see here that while the average score for the survey is 76, I'm scoring particularly high on learning and development and maybe not so high on leadership and management. And we go into the details of how you can use the results to actually understand why that may be happening. In particular, you can see here a section of biggest impact, and I'll come to that just in a second. But basically, the biggest impact shows you the most important results from this page. So these are all of the results. So in particular, what you see here are the list of questions that I've added to the survey. So it's, I think it's 8 questions or 9 questions or so. And you can see here, for example, one question is, I would recommend the great company. So this is the name of my demo company here as a great place to work. And you can see I have a filter applied here. Let me remove my filters. And you can see here the results. I have used, there are 3 different ways you can measure your results. NPS. So for example, this question here, this is the typical employee NPS question. So in this survey here, my employee NPS will be 24. I can also only count positive results. So that's only the green bits of the scale here. Or I can also look at averages. So if the scale is 1 to 10 and one person gives you an 8 and the other one a 7, the average is 7.5 or 75%. You can click also on these questions to see the individual results. And because in this particular survey, I did not enable comments, there are no comments to see here. Because it's an anonymous survey, I can also not see the author, I can only see the answers. If you do enable comments, you may find some useful insights in the comments here. So that's kind of the results page. And in particular, you can see here the impact score. And the way that works is that we have correlated the overall score of the survey with the factor. So for example, if you want to know what is the impact of engagement over the overall outcome of my survey, I can use the engagement and we'll show you here the questions that have high impact. So for example, confidence in the leaders at the company have a very high impact on the overall outcome of the score. And when I go back here to my dashboard, I can see those questions that have the highest impact. In particular, if I want to know the biggest impact on engagement, it's essentially confidence in the leaders at the company. If you want to figure out why am I doing particularly well in learning and development, I can change the factor here to learning and development. And now the impact is calculated for this particular factor. And you can see that open and honest two-way communication is particularly important for a high score on learning and development. And in particular, you see that this question isn't even about learning and development. It's about teamwork. So you can see that if you want to measure how well you're doing at learning and development and how we can maybe improve your learning development in the company, it's also the things that are not directly maybe about learning development, but the things around it, like being able to work in a team and open and honest conversations. So if you wanted to, for example, figure out how can I improve my leadership score, I'll switch this to leadership. And I can now see that there's a very high impact here. And if you can get more people to see themselves working at your company in 2 years' time to say, yes, that is the case, that is true, your leadership score will go up, and likely that is because these two factors are correlated. Then also we've introduced a new feature for analytics called the heat map. And the heat map shows you the results broken down by different demographic factors. So it could be site, department, gender, or tenure, for example. And you can see the results. And by the way, that's also the case here, either on a question level or on a factor level. So if you remember, right, I have used these 4 or 5 different factors. And if I want to see the summary across those factors, I can see those also here. In particular, I can see now here, for example, that I'm doing particularly well in teamwork and learning and development, and that I have some negative sentiment here around engagement and leadership. And you can click on the questions and factors to then maybe understand in the comments who that was. And then here in the heat map, it's similar. So you can see differences between the different offices. So particular here, you can see that in the Lisbon office, there are some negative responses in relation, so negative in compared to others in regards to these questions here. So in particular in Lisbon, it's much more less likely that employees are going to recommend the company as a great place to work. And clearly there's something going on there, and you probably want to maybe dig a little bit deeper. In particular, if you do enable comments in the survey, you may be able to look there. And here, same, you have the factor results. So you can see that, for example, engagement, leadership, and management as having much lower scores in Lisbon. And then in Berlin, the teamwork and learning development are lower than other parts of the company. So these are probably some areas for improvement. So this is the survey part. There are a number of settings that we introduced here, so maybe we can go into that if you have any specific questions, but basically a survey consists of a name, a set of questions that have these factors, and if you use these factors, you can use the aggregated results. You can add participants, and you can define the timeline, how long the survey should be open for, and how people should be notified, and whether they should be reminded if they haven't yet participated in the survey. And that's the overview of surveys so far. And let's dive into the reviews. So you can see here I have 2 reviews set up. One is an annual review for 2023, and one is a probation review. My annual review 2023 is already completed, and I can show you the results here. So first of all, I see an overview broken down by the different reviewer types of participation. In particular, you can see that peer participation was 67%. And then upward participation was 40%, and that overall participation was 65%. So especially when you engage in 360 reviews, you cannot always expect that everybody participate and complete and submit their reviews. But as long as you don't ask too many questions and you don't choose too many reviewers, ideally this should be close to 100%.
Sorry, Chris. One quick question that we got on the chat is how do we share a survey? How do we share it with the team? How do the team get they get invited to the survey?
Yes, so that works the same way in reviews as in surveys. So if you wanted to add somebody to a survey, so let's say here my annual engagement survey, you can go to the participants and you can add participants. So this could be everybody, or it could be a specific subset of people. So let's say these 3 people, or let's say you want to filter only people from the Lisbon site. So let's say you wanted to do a follow-up survey just for people in Lisbon and Berlin with some more detailed questions around, what is it specifically that we could improve on teamwork, for example. You could then invite people from this site and then launch the survey with this subset of people.
Great, thanks.
And in reviews, it works in a similar way. So you have also here your participants, and because this one's already completed, I can't add any more participants. But if I went here, for example, to my probation reviews that is still ongoing, I could go and add a new person to my probation review. Let's say we're adding here Alexa, and now Alexa, enter manager, and I can also allocate some peer reviewers, for example, if I wanted to, are now also going to be added to this review, and they will be notified via an email. Yeah, so let's get back to this one here. So these are the results, and you can always see the results even when the review cycle is still ongoing. So the page looks more or less the same, except that once the review is closed, you can't add any more reviewers or do any fundamental changes. And you can see here, for example, that everybody in this review has submitted their self-review, except for Alexa. So for some reason, Alexa's review didn't take place. Maybe she was on holiday or something. But you can see here, if I click, let's say on this review here, who are the people that participated. So we can see there was a self-review from Paula. The manager reviewed her as well. Then there were 2 upward reviews. So these are people that report into Paula, so her direct reports. And there were also 3 peers that participated. If you choose numerical questions, so you can see here, this, for example, is a scale question. So scale means, rate, on this question, rate from 1 to 5, for example. You can then also see the scores by reviewer and the aggregate score here at the top. And then also you can see the scores for each of the questions that you're asking in the review. Similar how you have it in surveys, you can use these factors, or let's say the categories or areas of interest that you can then have aggregated results over. So we've introduced this radar chart here, for example, where I can now show the aggregated results for those different factors, and you can then see how people are doing on those categories. So for example, how is this particular person doing with regards to collaboration, creativity, meeting goals, and adaptability. So the way you maybe want to form your review questions is around certain qualities or skills that you want to measure. And in particular, I've used here 3 questions around creativity, 3 questions around meeting goals, adaptability, collaboration, to get these results that I'm showing you here. And yeah, you can use these analytics to figure out maybe also in your calibration, how different review types are actually looking at a person. So if we look, for example, here at Anastasia, if we look at her radar chart, and this is kind of all over the place, so that's why it's also nice to use these factors, because you typically have fewer factors than questions. And I can see, for example, that there's quite a bit of discrepancy. First of all, how Anastasia sees herself and how a manager sees herself. Sees her. And probably in a review sit down, this is probably a topic of discussion. Ideally, you want people to be aligned on how well they're doing so that you can move a way forward and have a plan that you can both kind of execute on and can underwrite. And you can maybe not check what other people are thinking about this. So maybe you want to compare what the manager is saying with maybe what peers are saying. In particular, peers seem to rate her much higher. And if you now look at her upward reports also rate her much higher on pretty much all of the points. Now, what you could do is you could dive into these results and maybe check what's actually the case here. So you could go into the results and maybe check in a particular question around what people are saying and check the comments. And you can see here, for example, around collaboration, where the manager scored her quite lowly. What are actually people saying? Actually, one of her peers saying that she's actually quite reluctant to help out sometimes. So you can then maybe see and test why do people get to certain scores, and if there's really some discussion needed, you can then maybe use that as a follow-up to understand what's actually the issue, and basically sort out to get a real view or a 360 review on somebody's performance or how well they're doing.
We have a
Mhm.
question if the employee can see this chart, as it's important for them to get it as a result.
Yes. So when somebody goes to their result, so employees see the me view, right? So if I'm a regular employee that that's not an admin, not a line manager. I don't see the switch. I only see the me view, and all the results are published here in the results. So as an employee, I see both invites, so reviews that I have to give, either a self-review to myself or to others. So example, I need to give a manager review for Damien Works probation here. That's me as an employee. But I also see my results here from this 2023 review. And when I go on it, I see, my radar chart. I can see the results across the questions and across the factors. And I can see also here the answers from different people. Now, there are settings that you can take to determine what an employee should be able to see. And you can, in particular, also hide responses from either certain reviewers or for all reviewers on certain questions. And I can show you that here. I think, why don't we just set up a new survey and I show you how that works. Sorry, a new review. So let's say we started a new annual review, let's say for the year 2024. And there's an internal name and a display name. That's because maybe you have let's say you break down your annual review into 5 different reviews by department or something like that. You could all call them annual review 2024, and then maybe call this one here for, maybe engineering. That means you as the HR team can distinguish between those, but the employees don't necessarily need to see, right, that you have these internal differences. And then here when I add a question, so let's say I use a template, and I've already set up my performance review template here, so I can just reuse that. And let's say I wanted to hide feedback from peers or upwards or managers on a certain question. Let's say it's sensitive. Let's say, for example, this one here, I could go in and I could choose here this section, hide results from the employee. So if I wanted to hide the answers for managers, upwards, and peers on this particular question, I can then select this, save this, and then those responses are only visible to you guys from the HR team, or maybe their, the line manager, but not the employee themselves. Yeah, I think while we're here, why don't we quickly also cover how these questions actually work? So you can add questions to a review in 3 different ways. One is you can set up a template, and you can see I've already set up my performance review template here. These are the set of questions that I just added here. You can add individual questions from the library. Once you've created a custom question yourself, they are available from the library next time, so you don't have to add them every time separately. Or if you wanted to create a new question, you can click here, new question, and then you can type in the question text here. And you can determine here who should respond to that question. Is it just a self-review question? Should multiple people respond to it? And if so, should upward and peer also give an answer to that question? Then these are the factors that I mentioned. So if you ask a question about somebody's leadership qualities, select the leadership factor. If you want to measure other factors, you can create new factors and add them here to the list as well. And then finally, these are the different answer options. So comment is basically just a free text. Scale is, a rank from 1 to 5. That's the default scale. You can set up custom scales as well, but default is 1 to 5. And then there's different types of scales in terms of the labels. So so quality means, the 1 means very poor, 5 means very good, and then each of the steps in the middle also have a different label. And then this is the setting that I explained earlier. If you want to hide certain results from employees, let's say these are sensitive or private questions. And then you set up your questions here. You invite participants. You set the visibility settings. Should managers release feedback? Should it be automatically released to people once you finalize the cycle? Do you want to hide the identity of peers' names? So maybe you show them the results, just not the identity of people. The timeline, how much time do people have to respond to their questions? Any notifications? In particular, you can set reminders here if people haven't yet responded. And then, you can start the recycle either immediately, or you can set a future start date. So here I can't start the review right now because I haven't added any participants yet. So as long as I add at least 1 participant, I can now go and start the review cycle. And I think that brings me to the end of the high-level overview. I would love to just give a bit of time for Q&A. So I think I'll pause here for just a second, and we can jump into some Q&A if you guys have any questions.
I think we already have a couple. Can we set a different deadline for managers versus peers?
Yes, and I think I should go back and share again. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is part of the setting of that of the cycle. So if I go back to the cycle that I've just started creating here in the timeline, you can have different timelines for the different review types. So in particular, if you wanted self-reviews to be finished before managers started, I would give the self-review deadline a shorter amount of time here than the manager review deadline. So in this case, once I've started the review, self-reviewers have 7 days and managers have 14 days to submit their answers.
Okay, thank you. The other question is, can you mark questions as optional?
I believe at the moment, let me check. So I think we've added here. Let me check in the settings here. So you can, there's a setting here for whether you want to make a comment required, yes or no. So by default, they are required, but you could uncheck this here if you want to make it an optional question.
What actually happens at the end of a review?
Yes. So basically, the data is already all there. And what happens is, and I think I can show that here possibly. So there's a button here to finalize the review. And really what happens is that people will not see the action items anymore on their dashboard to submit answers. So you can see, for example, I have an action item here that says I need to complete my manager probation review for Damien. Once you've closed a cycle, these things disappear and people cannot submit their responses anymore. There's two ways how we can release the results to people. One is a setting that requires managers to release feedback. That means managers still have to go in and click a button to release the results. If we don't set that, then basically the moment a cycle is finalized, people get an email, and when they go to their Me view of the growth app, they will see their results here listed. So for example, let's say I close the 2024 review here. I will see another entry here and I can click on it. I can then see my results. So really not that much happens. Basically, the data is now becoming visible to employees and they get a notification.
Is there a way to test what a review looks like to the users before it gets sent out?
I believe there's a new feature. I haven't actually, I have to admit, I haven't seen it myself yet. But if you go into there's a preview function, which we added very recently. And Delia, I may need your help here to find it. So I think it's when I go to the questions. Oh yeah, there it is. So there's a preview button here. That is very new, so you may not have seen it. It's not been there a couple of weeks ago. It's there now. So if you want to see how people actually see these questions, then you can click on preview and you can select from what point of view you want to show this survey. So in particular here, you see that everybody, actually no, you can see that this question is slightly different. So you can see I'm selecting self, manager, upward, and peer reviews for everybody. Let's say I don't want the first question to appear for peers and upwards. I can deselect them here. That means if I now preview this as a peer, I should not see this question as the first question. I should see this one as the first question. So the level of impact question, and let's see if that actually works. So let's review this as a peer. Then, yeah, exactly. So when I go and click on submitting my review, I will not see the first question. I will start with the second question. And this UI actually is exactly the UI that people will see when they click this button here. So you can see here, this is my actual probation review for Damien in this test account, not for real. When I click start review, I see this form. So the thing that I just shown you is exactly what's going to show up here. And you can go and then put in your responses here.
Cool. If I create a custom scale on a 1 to 10 point scale, do I have to make a label for every point?
Very detailed question. I believe you do And I believe you should, because people may not otherwise know exactly what you mean. I think it may be optional, so I think you're not forced to, but you probably should do it anyway if you can. Oh, sorry, I'm just hearing from for Polina, it's actually required. Yeah, so if you want to use a, let's say, NPS scale, and that scale already exists, it's basically 1 to 10, and there is no rating on it. There's no label at all, actually. Then I would probably recommend to use the 1 to 10 scale, and just put in the question, on a scale from 1 to 10, put in how you think about X, and then you can use that.
Can you extend the review if someone is unwell or similar?
I think at the moment it's not possible to do it on an individual level. So you could extend the overall cycle as part of the setting, right? So which is the timeline you see. Let me go back to this one. So this setting you can change while the review is still ongoing. At the moment, this is not on an individual level. I think we've registered this feedback, and I think we've heard it before. So I think we'll think about how that could be uh, enabled in the future. But at the moment, you would basically change this timeline. And if it's really just that one person that is late, then ideally it's not an issue for others. But yeah, you would just have to change the setting if and when it's needed.
Cool. I believe you're planning to roll out an OKR section. Do you know what this will look like yet?
So there's one thing I can say. It will for sure be a new menu item here. I think we'll probably call it goals rather than OKRs, but it's kind of the same thing. And structurally, basically, you can create goals, and there's going to be different type of goals. So individual, team-based, or company-based results goals, and you can track progress against them. So there's going to be different type of goals. It could be numeric. Let's say you have to close 10 new customers this quarter, right? And then basically the target is 10, and you can gradually update it how you're standing throughout the quarter. And you can add weighting to it and those kind of things. And it will be visible here. And similar how you have the team, company, and me view, it will also exist there. So when you're a line manager and you go to the goals, you can see all the goals that are assigned to your individual team members. And when people go into the me view, they can see all the goals that are assigned to them and how they're doing on them, and they can submit updates to those goals. We may have a design on this already. I'm not sure, but we have some designs on this, but it's not yet in the testing app.
Mhm. We are getting some. It's nice to get these questions. We have other things to think about off topic as well. So we have a question that's not entirely relating to the growth app, but it's tangent. Is there any roadmap items for recording which employee has completed a training course or a granular training modules, training metrics for induction and personal growth training, for example?
Yes. So I think we're probably not going to introduce a feature that is specifically called training in the very near future. However, we are introducing a new reporting functionality that I think we're releasing the next month or week, in the next weeks for sure. And basically what you could do is you can create now reports that list you for example, you could list the number of trainings that have been completed by people, and you can create custom sections in a. I think I've set up in this account already. Here in my work account, I've set up a section called skills, but you could call it training, for example, and you could list here either as a drop down. For example, I've added some training courses here. As a drop down, what training courses has been completed, and you can maybe add dates when the last last training was completed, and you could then run a report to see an update on this. So let's say you want to make a training report, and you want to see, let's say, who are all my first aiders in the company. I can make a first aider report, and I could go in and show here my training field, and I can see here the training course is completed. And you can see, for example, here that Anastasia and Chris have completed first aid course. And you could also use this to filter. So I could show, for example, show me all the people that actually have completed a course, because all the other ones are not that relevant. So let's add here filter for training courses. And let's say I want to know of any of these. So as long as somebody has completed some training, please show them here. So now I see all the 4 people in the company that have completed a training. And in particular, Anastasia, Chris, and Alexandria have completed a first aid training, and Baroque has completed a health and safety training. You can also create new reports, other reports like aggregations. So you could, for example, show the number of first aid trainings that have been completed in the London site versus the New York site to kind of get an overview here. So basically, you can slice and dice the data as you need them to create a report to see what you want to see. As long as you create the relevant data fields in Zelt. So I would probably suggest that maybe we can set up a session together to kind of see how that can be best set up in terms of the custom fields, and then how you can set up a report so you can see the data in a format that you wanted to see.
I think this was a bit of a teaser for maybe our next webinar, which is probably going to be reports as soon as we launch this feature. Can you show us how to set up the template questions, or are they default?
Template questions, yes. So the template questions, you can access them in a review. They also exist here in the settings. So if I wanted to check here in my review templates, right? So these are the 4 review templates that I've already created. Not quite sure what we is, but I should probably delete this. So these are template reviews. So these are groups of questions. So for example, this one is a template that has, I think, 12 questions already in it. And this is the question library. So when you put together a template, these are the questions you can choose from. And this is a mix of questions that are already created by Zelt by default. So we added a few questions. We looked at a number of different, performance review tools, like the best in class ones, right? And we looked at how Google is running their performance reviews from this Google Geist review and survey kind of questions. So we try to put together a number of good questions so you can already leverage those. And then you can add your own. So if you wanted to add your own question here, I mean, first of all, it's filterable and searchable. So let's say you want to have a question around, I don't know, leadership. You could search here and see if there's maybe already some question in here that you can leverage. In particular, I already added one myself here as a custom question. If you wanted to add your own, you click just new question and you add the settings that you want for this question here. In particular, who should respond to this question? If it's a 360 review, what are the question texts? The self-review question, you can that may be slightly differently formulated. The factor here for your benchmarking and your summary analytics, and then what type of question is it a scale? Is it a choice answer? Is it choice 1 and maybe choice 2? Is it a choice maybe with a comment? If it's a comment, is that comment required or not? And then do you want to hide the responses from the employee or not?
After the review has been completed?
I'm sorry, what was that?
If the managers can edit the answers after the review has been completed.
Yes, they can. Until before the review is finalized, they can be edited. I don't have one, so I have this probation review on it. I can't show it to you because I don't have anything to edit them, or maybe this one here. Let's see. Sorry, you mean that managers can change their own responses, yeah?
Yes.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's the case. So when your managers go to the growth app, they will not see the company view, of course. They will see the team view and the me view, i.e., the team view is all their the cycles that are relevant for their team members. They can go into them and they can see. Or actually, it's here in the me section. Basically, these are the invites. So these are the reviews that they have already submitted or are pending review. So you can see here, I have already submitted my review for Damien for his probation review, and it's submitted. But because the cycle is still ongoing, I could go in here, and I could just go back into the same screen, and I could change my my answers here, for example. I've now resubmitted it. The resubmission will trigger another email. Whoever gets an email gets another email that Damon has now resubmitted their review. But in the result now, it's the updated answers that are there.
Cool. Looking at the Q&A, we've gone through all the questions so far. I wonder if you have any feedback or anything in particular that you want us to focus on the rest of the time, or if not, we can pick up the discussions. I know there's two people who are interested in having the session into setting up the reports for custom fields. But let us know if there's anything else or any other topic that you'd be interested in seeing next, or for us to go into more details in our next webinar. We
I
will
think,
also
Delia,
send a
it's probably helpful, maybe before we kind of close that out, we should probably talk a little bit, just a minute, about the upcoming ongoing and continuous reviews as well.
Yeah, we just got a question about what's coming next in growth. So I think, yeah,
Okay.
we can.
Yeah, so maybe I can just tell you a little about, but that it's a bit of a teaser, but it's in the near-term roadmap. So when you set up a cycle, so here in the timeline, you can already see. So basically here, right now, you can only choose to either start the cycle immediately or schedule it for the future. What we're going to be adding here is the ability to. There's actually two alternative ways to trigger a review. One is going to be called continuous, and that means it's actually an ongoing cycle that is just open forever. In particular, this will be useful for probation, because what you don't want to do is now, let's say you have onboarded 30 people in the last quarter, have 30 different probation reviews just listed here. And what you can do then is here in the timeline settings, set them to continuous and use an enrollment trigger. And that means that enrollment trigger could be, start date is 10 days ago, or probation period end date is in 7 days. And that means people will be automatically added as a participant based on that trigger, which is the same thing as really clicking on add participant manually. So let's say Agatha is coming up for probation, I could just go in and add her. The main difference is that each of these individual people added will have their own timeline, because we're defining the timeline as relative. So this is relative from their individual start date, and obviously people end their probation on different dates. So each of these people here will have their own, let's say, deadlines, but all the results will be visible together in the same cycle. And that means you have only one probation review cycle, and you can also see the results in aggregation to see, for example, on what's the average, for example, outcome of a probation, how do people score on average, and what's maybe the average pass rate. The same will be the case in survey. And I think there's already a bit of a teaser here in the settings in the timeline that's asking you the frequency once. So that's currently still disabled. And that's the second bit, which is going to be called recurring reviews. So rather than setting the start date just once, you can create a recurring start date here. It could be quarterly, monthly, annually. I think those are the options. And then you'll have different, let's say, children of the same cycle. So you can have your annual engagement survey as a recurring cycle, and then each year you could have one branch basically of this survey, which has the same rules and the same settings. And in particular, when you go to the results, you will be able to see. Let me go back to my pulse survey. An additional graph here, which is a timeline of the score. So right now you see the score is 76. So let's say I've done this pulse survey already 4 times in the last let's say one each per month. You would see for each on this chart on each month basically a result and a line, and you can see the survey score changing, and you'll see a little arrow up and down next to results to compare how it was from the last survey. So for example, if the last survey was 72, there'll be a green arrow pointing up, and we'll say +4 because previously the score was 72. And you'll also see it here in the results. So there's a new column here also for I think it's called change. And again, you'll see here the difference to the score from the last survey. So let's say this result before was 32, then you'll see a little red arrow going down with an 8 because this score is 8 points lower than last one's. And yeah, it's similar. You will have then just one pulse review cycle, not 12 for the 12 different months in the year, and keep accumulating more and more of them. It will just be one cycle, and you can contain all the data and all the information and the changes over time within that one cycle. So I think that probably wraps up the, let's say, the feature showings. Yeah, so handing back over to you, Delia.
Yeah, sure. If there are no other questions, we will wrap it up. Say the corporate thing of giving you 13 minutes back. We'll follow up on this, and we'll organize, we'll follow up to get some of your feedback. We'll organize some more webinars as soon as we have bigger features that are released. For example, reports is going to be the next big one, and following up with the training setup with the people who have shown interest. Once again, thanks everyone for your attention and for joining us today. It was really great. Kind of excited to do the next ones. Feel free to give feedback outside if you don't. Or use our support email or my own email. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good rest of the day and a very nice weekend that's fast approaching. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.